Hello, everyone, and welcome to Co-Creation Station, the podcast where we talk about the law of attraction, the art of allowing, spiritual magic, the mind-body-spirit connection, and how to best enjoy this mystical, miraculous, mysterious, crazy, sometimes confounding, but always incredible journey we call life. My name is Collin. I'm located in beautiful, sunny North Hollywood, California.
My name is Stephanie Orlina. I am a transformational life coach and I help people shift away from negative thinking. And I'm in San Diego, California.
Thank you so much for listening or watching to this episode. We just want to let you know that on our podcast, we often mention Abraham Hicks and Esther Hicks. If you're not familiar with them, Esther is a speaker and author who channels Abraham. Abraham is described as a group of entities from beyond our physical world who share their wisdom by speaking through Esther at workshops and speaking opportunities around the world. You can find more information about them online if you want at abraham-hicks.com. Each week, we start our discussion from a different jumping off point here on Co-Creation Station. And this week, I wanted to pick up from where we finished up last week because last week's episode, we started out talking about this oracle card I had read about callings and not needing permission from others to live your calling and all that sort of stuff. But where we ended up was talking about essentially about resistance. And if we want something really bad, but we have resistance around it. Like we started talking about what is the best way to get out of our own way, let go of that resistance, so that we can welcome in whatever we want to be, do, or have more smoothly, easily, quickly, etc. And so, Stephanie, you had said in response to my question that one of the best ways was to change the subject. In other words, if we're always having, like, if we really want this new car, but every time we think about the new car, we actually really are thinking and focusing more on our old crappy car that we have now and how we don't have the new car yet and how that's inconvenient and the old car keeps costing us repair money and all that sort of stuff. That sometimes the best way to deal with that is to actually just change the subject, meaning take your focus entirely off the old car and the new car. Like, don't think about either one and do something like go to the beach and enjoy a beautiful sunny day at the beach, or put on your favorite album and listen to awesome music and dance around your kitchen, or put on your favorite stand-up comedian on Netflix and watch their special and laugh your butt off for an hour, something like that. Did you want to, you inhale?
Yeah, but sometimes we can't. Like there just sounds like, it's such it's a vast contradiction to like from one to the other.
Right,
and I'm
right.
like, and a lot of times we can't do that. I'm just too far away from that. If I'm like upset about something that I want and, thinking of all these reasons why I can't have it or why it's not here or how, and and then to like go listen to my favorite comedian, that's not even in my realm.
Right.
And so we can't even go that far to that better feeling place.
Well, a good example would be for that hypothetical person that's in their old, has the old crappy car. If they are needing to go to work and they have to take their old crappy car to work and they get in their car and it doesn't start again, it's like the nth time that it hasn't started when they need it to start. You can't at that moment go watch an hour of stand-up comedy because you gotta go to work, right? So
Well, that too. I mean, well, you got to deal with getting the car fixed,
Right. So how do you deal with that moment? How do you not dive super deep into the negativity?
You know what? Honestly, it's like it's starting way before that. It's like, first thing in the morning when you get up, do your best to meditate.
Mm.
I try and do that, say a few prayers, visualize some things that I want. Even I used to do this quite a bit. Was after meditating and stuff, I would just lie on my bed and I'd put my fists on my chest and then I'd be like, all right, Steph, tell me 10 things you're thankful for. And I would just, number them off. And sometimes I could finish 10, other times I'd do 20. It's getting me into that energetic state of feeling a little bit better.
Mm-hmm.
Because then most likely when I've done the energetic work, by the time I go to start my car, it most likely will start.
Mm.
And if it doesn't start, I'm in a frame of mind that I'm not wanting to call, as they say, the suicide prevention hotline because I'm so upset. I'll
Yeah.
just be like, okay, I'm going to call my roadside assistance, or I need to call a friend to see if they can take me to work, or I'm not that far away from a bus stop. I can, you know what I mean? I'll let me call work, I'll let them know I'm going to be late,
Yeah.
And so my frame of mind, because I've done the energy work prior to, I'm able to handle things that come up like that in a much healthier, calm way than if I'm like, I get up and I don't, I quickly get ready for work and then I run out the door because I'm afraid I'm going to be late. And then I go and I start my car and I'm like, shit, it's not starting. And I am going to be late, this
Yeah.
just hear the difference between the two.
Yeah.
And so it really is, that is the work. That is my job, is to just help myself feel a little bit better.
Mm.
Do the things beforehand. And I always say first thing in the morning, because if I wait till the end of the day, I've already had a whole day.
Right.
And it's like, what's the point? I mean, it's okay to do that, but definitely do it first thing in the morning. Like if that's going to pay the biggest dividends ever.
Yeah. The other thing I was thinking about too is one of the ways I kind of can sabotage myself when I am trying to allow in something into my life that I want to be, do, or have is letting go of the timeline.
Mm,
And
yeah.
that's really challenging for me sometimes. But a lot of times it's like I will be okay feeling positive, like, yeah, I'm going to get that new car. Yeah, that's fine, But then when it doesn't show up for 3 months, then I'm like, all right, it is way past time for the new car. I'm never this proves I'm never gonna get the new car. Gosh darn
Oh,
it.
right. And we've
And
all
there's
had those thoughts.
yeah. But they really center on timing. It's not that I won't get the new car. It's not that I didn't do a good job having a positive vibration for the first 3 months, but it's suddenly I'm using the timing, like a judgment on the timing, as an excuse to get into the negative and into the let's spend a lot of energy on not having it, which again, with the law of attraction, will just bring me more of not having it. That's
Yeah,
what I'm finding
yeah.
out.
Is
Why do you
there
think
a
we have so
question?
much? Why do you think we struggle so much with wanting to control the time of things? How soon things come?
Well, it's kind of like what we were talking about in last week's episode. I think it's a little different for everyone. Sometimes for me, it's like I'm not trusting that it's going to come,
Mm,
or that I think that if it doesn't come within this certain amount of time, then I can't have it. It's not going to
yeah,
happen because I can't see how. And it goes back to that how. I was talking
we've
about
mentioned this in previous episodes, but I kind of like the example we've used before of Amazon. Like when you go on Amazon and you order something, you don't like constantly check the Amazon website every hour to make sure that your order is still there and it's still being processed and on its way. Like even they send me emails, I don't even read them because I know, like, I know Amazon, you'll be here in 2 days. Like, I don't care. But like when we put something out to the universe with our vibration, like we tend to not trust it that way. We tend to be like, well, why isn't
oh,
it here
ye
yet?
of little faith.
Yeah. And I think that's partly because, Amazon has a pretty good track record of, like, you order something and you get it. If you have Prime, you get it within 2 days. And with us, we are not as we're blaming the universe, but it's really our vibration. Our vibration is not as consistent as Amazon's delivery system.
Yeah, right. That's
you
a
know?
really good point. I'm the only one that is preventing myself from ever having anything that I want.
Yeah.
No one else. It's not you. It's
Yeah.
not my mother. It's not my neighbor.
Yeah.
It's not my daughter. It's I'm the only one. And it's my thoughts, the thoughts that I have, the beliefs that I have, the things that I think about that are stopping it from showing up.
Mhm.
Because you and I have had a ton of things have happened to us where um, we just didn't think about it, and then it shows up.
Yeah.
Because there's no resistant thought. There's nothing blocking it. There's nothing stopping it. And oftentimes it's those things that I want so badly, I just slow down from them from happening. It's like I'm doing this to myself. if I just like knock
Yeah.
it off. But it means a lot to me, which is ridiculous. Oh,
No, I mean, and you hear, I mean, I think a lot of people hear pretty regularly, like when you hear stories of couples getting together, there will be a story of, a pretty common story is, one person was not looking for a
yeah,
romantic partner at all, or had
yep,
given up, like had
yeah,
done online dating for a
exactly.
while and they just stopped because it was ridiculous.
Yeah,
And then when they finally stopped, that's when the
that's
person showed
yeah.
up. And I can understand people's frustration in that seeming counterintuitive, it's just like, oh, I have to like not focus on what I want, like to get what I want. Like that doesn't make any sense. So why am I just not getting a whole? Why am I just? Why isn't my life filled with a whole bunch of stuff I don't want? It's like I have some stuff that I want. So how did that stuff show up? And it's
A
like, well,
lot of stuff.
at a
I have a
certain
lot
point,
of stuff.
at whatever point was necessary, you didn't have resistance to those things, and you
Yeah,
allowed them to flow in, and that's how it
yeah,
works. If
yeah,
something hasn't shown up in your life yet, you still have resistance around it.
exactly.
Or I think there's also the possibility too that like I think sometimes our spirit, well, not sometimes, for me, I feel like my spirit is smarter than my logical brain. And
Absolutely.
there are times where my logical brain wants something that my spirit knows, or my soul, or however you visualize that, your inner truth, whatever, knows I don't want or would not be good for me. And so in those times when my logical brain gets me to go after that thing, then I will be continually frustrated because I'm like, well, why can't I get this thing? And it's not even that, it's off in the future or whatever. It's like literally my own inner self is like, well, you don't really want that. So I'm not going
Yeah.
to like put out that vibration.
Or the other thing is that, why isn't this thing that I want not showing up? And
Yeah.
that sometimes it's too is because I have a lot of resistant thoughts. And so
Yeah.
I'm like slowing it down. And there's some other things that I also have wanted to experience or be. And if I go directly to what it is that I want, I'm not going to have all these other experiences.
Right.
And so therefore, I'm taking the longer route because there's all these other things that I don't even remember and know that I want to have experiences with. And going in this direction is going to help me have those. And then eventually I'll get to where it is I
Yeah.
want to be. And I think that was the thing recently. There I was saying in friend time that there's been these two Abraham clips that I really love, and I'll just put them on loop and listen to them constantly because it makes me feel good to be
Mhm.
reminded like it's done and I'm the only holdout. That's one of
Mhm.
them. Um, and then just like letting go and trusting and believing and allowing. And when I listen to them, I'm often I often remind myself of like, oh yeah, stuff. Remember when you wanted this and you didn't even think it was ever possible? And yeah, maybe it took many years, but you eventually got it. You were
Mhm.
eventually became that, whatever it is. And I was like, this is no different.
Mhm.
You're gonna eventually have this. And then noticing like the thoughts, like last night, a bunch of thoughts came up about some resistant stuff, you know, and I was just like, "Oh, yeah, that's why." Yeah, that's why you're slowing it down because you were more focused on what you don't want than what you do want.
Yeah.
And then it's just like doing those things like that help me feel a little bit better.
Yeah.
Isn't it cool that we could be literally like when I understand like, "Oh, it's just me." It's just me.
It's funny because I often think about that of like, it's amazing because I think I've said this on the podcast before that like when I first heard the story of Aladdin and the magic lamp, where the genie comes out and gives you three wishes, I was like, oh my gosh, I wish I had a magic lamp. And then I
Yeah.
also had the thought of like, oh my god, how cool would it be if the genie didn't have that three wish limit? And but of course I told myself like, oh, that's just a story, whatever. And then I grow up and I learn about, law of attraction, art of allowing. It's like, oh, like we all have the magic lamp and there's no limit on it, but you have to believe that you do have the lamp, and you have to believe that there's no limit. And that is, so the tricky part isn't finding the lamp or rubbing it the right way, whatever. The tricky part is just believing that you have it,
Yeah,
and then it
yeah.
works 100% of the time if you can just believe in it.
And the universe is set up to like be your like whatever you want. Like
Yeah,
no one, the only one that's saying no is me.
yeah,
Because earlier you said you were like, oh, I'm like, what should we talk about today? And then you throw out this like horrific idea, and I go, no, 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 no. And then I'm like, oh, Steph, by you saying no, you think you're saying no, but because you're
yeah, yeah.
focused on it, you're actually saying yes, yes, yes. And so immediate,
We
I
found
caught
out
my.
that you really do want to do an episode entirely on actor, movie star Steven
I
Seagal.
can't believe you said it. And so I was like, oh yeah, because even when we say no, I'm giving my attention to it, and therefore I'm calling it to me. It's not the word no, it's the
Yeah,
attention to.
yeah. It's really it's a weird thing that that our own that we say it's us, but it's real for me. When I boil it down, it's really thought patterns, beliefs.
Yeah.
It's not me and my whole person. It's really like thought. It might feel like it's me, but really like in that hypothetical example I had before of the old car. It's like it might feel like, oh, I'm the one who's upset about the car, but really what's going on is in the old car that I no longer want, that's broken down and not working, like interacting with it is triggering a thought in my brain or a belief,
Yeah.
because beliefs are just thoughts we think of over and over again until they're just like burned into us. Of something like, I don't deserve a new car, or a new car would be too expensive, or all cars break down and so I'm never going to get one that's going to work great, or whatever, something like that. But that's a thought. Like that's like a text. You could type it out in text if you can slow your brain down and really listen to it. Like, what is my brain talking? What is it speaking right now? And it would be like a text thought of like, you don't deserve to have a nice car ever, you know. And that's really what's running the show. That's what's taking me to the negative vibration. That's what's blocking what's in my vortex from coming in
Right.
sooner.
Yeah.
It's really these thoughts. So like when you said, because I remember doing this when I was your client as a life coach, is quite often, I would be stuck on something like this, and you would say, what I suggest you do is write down, what is this negative belief you have? And then find out, like, what is the opposite of that belief? Because that's the thought your brain is never thinking. If you think, I just don't
Yeah.
deserve a good car, I just don't deserve a good car, I just don't deserve a good car, your brain is never open to the thought of, you know what, I deserve a great car.
Or
you know?
maybe, yeah, maybe there is a car in my future that I
Yeah,
really like.
right.
But
Well,
and sometimes I can't go to that. Like I've done that.
this
It's
is
so
what I was just going to
funny
say. Yeah, the
where I've written
gradual.
the opposite, and then I'll be like, yeah, I don't believe that one.
Yeah,
But I did that a couple years ago with something, and I just, even when I didn't believe it, I just kept saying it. And now I can say, I remember I got to a point after like 3 months in or 6 months in, I was like, oh, look at that. I don't like not believe that anymore. I'm starting to believe that thing that I keep saying over and over again. So it is possible that sometimes at first it's like, yeah, right, I don't believe that. But I think it's important to look at like, what am I automatically thinking? And I don't even realize like that thought is hurting me.
and I think that's a big part of the issue is that we have. I mean, I'm making a broad overgeneralization here, but in general, we tend to experience the bigger resistance with the what seem to us to be the bigger things that we want to be, do, or have, right? It's like when people want to change careers and do something completely different, or when somebody wants to move out of a small apartment and move into a nice house with room in it, or when someone wants to get rid of their old beat up car and get a really nice vehicle. Like our brains are convinced that that's a big leap, so that's where we have this resistance that comes in of like, how are you going to go to having like this POS car that doesn't even work, that you couldn't even get money for probably, to like a $30,000 car? Like that is just too far to go, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And so I think that's where people like kind of come to folks like us and movies like The Secret and people like Abraham Hicks, because they want to find out, like, that's what they're stuck on. There's this big thing. But I remember hearing in a few, I don't know if it's Abraham or The Secret or whatever, and I'm wondering why we don't talk about this tactic or this strategy a little more, actually, which is start off with a cup of coffee. Like, see if you can attract a free cup of
Oh,
coffee
yeah, yeah,
in your day tomorrow.
yeah,
Because what that will do is, if you, first of all, if you can't do it, then you can try again the next day, and there's no harm, no foul. Like, you didn't
yeah,
get a free cup of coffee, big deal. Your
yeah,
life is not changed at all, pretty
yeah,
much. But if you can actually like get in, practice your vibration, which could be, if you feel really great and you have a good vibration going, it
yeah,
could be visualizing the free cup of coffee,
yeah,
or it could be spending the entire day not focused on the coffee, but just thinking good thoughts and having gratitude and watching stand-up comedians and listening to good music and all that, and then just
yeah,
almost completely letting it go, and then
yeah,
watching the cup of coffee show up. Because
yeah.
I think that's one of the genius things that Abraham talks about. And I feel like a lot of people who talk about the law of attraction don't talk about it. She talks a lot about gradualness, like working your way
Yeah,
up through things instead of
exactly.
trying to like step up to the plate for the first time and hit a home run on your
Yeah,
first time at bat,
yeah.
which is like kind of a setup for failure. Like, if you've
Well,
never
and they don't
worked,
always do that, even the sports, like,
right,
most of the time they miss, right?
right,
It's only I don't forget what the percentage is,
yeah.
but yeah.
But I feel like that's, I don't know for a fact, but I feel like that's sometimes is how people come to this sort of
Oh,
work and this
absolutely,
study, is like they want a new car,
absolutely.
so they're like, I'm gonna search online for like, how do you get a new car? And it's like, oh, law of attraction. All right, I'm gonna sit down and think good thoughts about a new car. Oh, I didn't get a new car. That doesn't work.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah,
That
nobody.
used to be me. Oh my god, like 12 years ago, like, when I first so Abraham discovered Abraham in, I think, 2006, and I remember
Mhm,
those first couple of years, I would
yeah,
listen to them, get all excited, whatever it was I wanted to create. I did it for a day or 2. "Ah, this doesn't work."
yeah. Because
And,
I have really good specific examples. I remember in 2012, the summer of 2012, I was having a lot of financial difficulties, and I remember focusing on, but I was actually in a really good vibration a lot of the time, and I
yeah,
just started learning about Abraham Hicks and law of attraction stuff. So I focused on attracting $50, and I attracted $50 in about a week.
nice.
And then a few years later, when I was much better, I think it was probably like 20, or when would that be? 2000, I want to say 2008, 2009, somewhere in there. I decided I wanted to attract $15,000. And it showed up in like 2015. It was like 7 years later. It did show up.
It
Like,
did show up, see?
I
It
visualized, I
showed
wrote
up.
out a check for $15,000 back
Nice.
in whatever that was, 2006 or whatever,
Yeah, yeah,
2008.
yeah,
I saw it and everything, and I got
yeah.
a check like that, but it was 7 years later. But the thing is, that's me and my thoughts, not the
Right.
universe. The
Yeah.
universe is like, you want
Instantly, it
50?
was yep,
You want
boom.
15,000?
Yep, I know.
Doesn't matter to
Uh-huh.
me. What do you want? And are you lowering your resistance so that I can get it to you quick?
And that was the thing I was thinking about this week too, is that, when in listening to those couple of Abraham, blurbs that I really liked, I was like, "Oh, stuff, it's already done." Like, it's already
Yeah.
done. Like, "Oh, I don't know how, I don't know where it is, I don't," but I'm
You don't
like,
have to. That's
I know, and that's the other thing, when I look at where I'm at right now, I'm like, "I didn't even know this existed." Like, I remember, like, I didn't know, and then
yeah,
here I am, and so even for the next thing, I'm like, "Yeah, I don't know how and where or what." I'm like, "But it's already done, because when I
yeah.
ask, it's already given, so energetically it exists," and I'm like, just thinking about that feels really a lot better, and I'm like,
Mhm.
"Huh, looky there, right on."
There is one other piece of this that I want to talk about. It's a little connected to what we're talking about, but it's sort of a different topic. And I make this mistake still a lot more than I'd like to admit, which is, but I also talk to people who tell me they make this mistake as well, which is a lot of times we know what we don't want. So in that example, the old beat up car, we don't want that. But we actually don't spend any time or energy focusing on what we actually do want
Yeah,
instead. We'll
yeah,
just
yeah.
complain about the old car.
Right, yeah.
And the thing with the law of attraction with that is the law of attraction is just always going off our vibration. So if all we're doing is like, even if you say like, I wish I had a new car because I hate this old car, that all that's going to attract is more of the old car because
Yeah.
there's nothing, you're not attracting something else to replace it. So like one thing that, I mean, finding this apartment, I talked to a couple of friends of mine and they were like, well, why don't you before, because I did something that I would normally do, which is when I needed the new apartment, I started looking at listings before I figured out what I really wanted.
Yeah.
Like I kind of knew pieces of what I wanted, but I
Yeah.
hadn't sat down and really thought like, this is what I want the place to be like.
Yeah.
It was, so I look at the listings and just all I see is like too expensive, too small, but neighborhood I don't want to live in, da 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 da. And I talked to two of my friends about this, and they both were like, "Why don't you just sit down, take a day off from the listings entirely,
Yeah.
sit down, write a list of what you want your apartment to be like, so at least you know what you're looking for,
Yeah.
and then just say to the universe, that's what I want. Then go look to the listings."
Yeah.
I did that. I found this place in like 2 weeks. It was crazy.
Yeah. Nice.
And but I could have kept looking at listings for like forever,
Yes.
and
Right.
just being like, "There's nothing out there I want," and it
Right.
kind of
Right.
would have been
Right.
true. But
Yeah.
again, not the fault of the listings, not the fault of the universe, like the fault
Yeah.
of me for only knowing, well, these are a bunch of things I don't want. Like there
Yeah.
does, if you want to allow something to come into your life, you do have to match it. So if you're not putting anything out there to match, then nothing's gonna match. You know?
Well, and I thought about this earlier too, and I didn't mention it, was that I've already lived the contrasting
Yeah,
situation, which already created it. So it's done. I don't
yeah,
have to do anything else
yeah,
other than get out of the way.
yeah,
It's like I don't have to figure it out, or I don't have to, have a plan and then like execute it. If
yeah.
that makes me feel better, then great. But it's not necessary because it already exists. And that blows my mind too. Like, oh, I already did the big heavy lifting by living the contrasting situation, which made me realize like I don't want this. This is what I do want. I'm like, oh my God. Like never do any of us think that because it's all
Well,
about doing stuff.
yeah, and that to me that reminds me of Colette Baron Reed, who makes a lot of the oracle card decks that I use. You know, she says something I always try to remember as often as I can, which is 99% of what is actually happening is not in the visible world. You know, what we can see, feel, and touch in physical reality is like 1% of what's really going on. Like the stuff that's bringing stuff into your life is actually going on in this invisible behind the scenes kind of thing between the law of attraction and you. Like you're just like physical reality is just like the last landing spot of things that are like going on always behind the scenes. And so if I actually want to go get a new job and I think that it is actually all up to me and my logical mind, like those are the only tools we can use,
Yeah.
we're done, because it's like that's not how the new job is arranged. That's how it looks sometimes if you just all you talk about is manifested physical reality. But the reality is like as you say, what's happening spiritually is the moment I want a new job, if I have a feeling about what the kind of work I would like to do, that new job, the universe already answers it because it has to match my vibration,
Yeah.
and it has to create it immediately and put it in my
Yeah.
vortex. Then the only thing we're doing is how do we get Collin's vibration into the right space where it's lined up so that that thing is
Yeah.
allowed out of my vortex and into
Yeah.
manifested reality.
Yeah. Oof.
Looking at want ads and stuff can be a part of that, but that's
Yeah.
not what actually, that's
Does
not
it?
the fuel or
Yeah.
the energy that
Yeah.
actually gets it to happen
Yeah.
ever, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's really easy to get caught up in that, like, oh,
Yeah.
I'm not finding the right listings on this site. It's like
Yeah.
that's not the real
I
reason. The real reason
know,
is
I
you're
know.
resistant.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know.
it's so good.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Wow. Great discussion. Um, and I feel like complete because I feel like we just started that topic last week's episode, and I wanted to get
Fabulous. I love
deeper
when that
into it. And I feel like
happens.
we did that.
Yay.
So thank you so much for listening or watching listening to or watching this episode. Remember, at this point in time, we are posting a brand new episode for you every single Monday morning, just for you to start your week off right. And we truly appreciate you doing whatever your platform allows you to do to support us. All of our social media links and our email address are down in the doodly doo on the YouTube version of this episode down below. We wish you a happy and abundant week, and we look forward to you joining us again on the next episode of Co-Creation Station. Bye, everybody.
Bye.